most of us haven't joined, but I think we will be able to update them, or they can join us while the meeting continues. Yeah, so I would like to welcome you all officially to our science communication competition for university students. And this time round, we are not only doing it in the Nile Basin, we have extended it to the entire Africa. And I think this is a very good news because after all, we are in the same continent, and I think something good that happens in a different country can actually be emulated in also like a different country, where we can actually join hands together and resolve all these transboundary issues. And one of these transboundary issues that we can talk about is swamps. So today we are here to talk about swamps. I hope you all know what swamps are. We did not use the term wetlands, but I know that is what most of you are familiar with. And allow me to share my screen so that I can actually begin the presentation. Yeah, so I prepared a very small presentation just to share what you will be working on. Just a minute. So can you all see the presentation? Just... Yeah, so here we are. Can you all see the presentation? Yeah, so last year we tackled groundwater and biodiversity, and we had students from across the Nile Basin countries, which includes Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Sudan, Egypt, and DRC. And they tackled, including the Gambia. The Gambia has been part of the competition since year one. And they tackled groundwater and biodiversity. And from there, I think we got Burundi came in on top. That was number one. And then number two, we had the Gambia. The Gambia is, I think, in the west of Africa. And then number three was Uganda. Yes, so this time it's a very big competition. And you're hoping, because I think we have like so many countries being represented from Africa. So we are hoping to get like very good outputs. And I think the competition is also going to be much more fierce. Yeah. So this year, as we said, we are talking about swamps in order to conserve biodiversity in a changing climate. So I think we are all here because we applied for this. If you did not apply for this, then perhaps you're in the wrong meeting. But we are all here because we all registered to actually participate in this competition. And that is why we've included you in this forum to actually discuss what is at hand. So briefly about our organization. So I come from Infonile, and Infonile is a geojournalism group. It's a cross-border network that is consisting of 800 environmental journalists and scientists in the Nile Basin. We were founded in 2017. And we use data journalism and multimedia formats to shed light on water and environmental crises in and even work solutions in the Nile Basin. So we are also a flagship project of Water Journalist Africa. I don't know if you've heard about us, about Water Journalist Africa or about Infonile, but Water Journalist Africa is also a not-for-profit media organization that has a membership of over 700 journalists reporting on water in 50 countries across the African continent. Yeah, so how do we do it at Infonile? Our approach involves identifying cross-border water data and stories, training and mentoring journalists in data and science journalism. We also do support journalists to produce in-depth investigative stories. And then normally we do produce cross-border data journalism projects. I think we realized that there were so many issues that were cross-cutting and even cross-boundaries. And so we've been working with different journalists, investigative journalists. So we put these stories together to actually do like cross-border stories. So this project that you're actually doing right now, which is the Science Communication Competition, is a flagship platform called Nilewell, and it is a project it's InfoNile's project. And just briefly, if I may just talk about Nilewell. So we realized that there was a very big gap between environmental researchers and journalists in the Nile Basin countries. And just to encourage science-based stories and to foster science communication, we came up with science communication because we want to make science, more relatable to the public, and even the public can actually apply it in their daily lives. But then we also realize that it's better to even begin with our youth at a very young age. And that is why we started this competition. We did it for high school, and now we are doing it for university students. I don't know if anyone has a question up to there regarding who we are, or if I may just continue so that we don't take much time. Yeah. Thank you. So, yes, we can hear you. You can continue. Hello? Is someone speaking? Okay, if not, let me just begin with this quote real fast. Nothing in science has any value to society if it is not communicated. So this is a quote from Anne Rowe in 1952. And I think it really resonates with us all that are here. Like, there is no point for science to go about looking for all this research, get all these case studies, if the society will never actually learn about them and actually, understand what they are about. So I think science needs to be communicated, and that is why we are all here, to actually encourage science communication. So Science Communication Competition is a project that has been supported by JRS Biodiversity and IHE Delft, and it aims to engage Africa university students in understanding the importance of conserving swamps and their biodiversity, in the context of climate change, as we had talked about. What are we going to cover today? We are going to cover science communication, biodiversity, swamps, climate change, and actually we are also going to dig deep into why we are also here and the various aspects of the competition, especially the nitty-gritty that is necessary for this competition. Just to share briefly what science communication is just process of sharing scientific knowledge and information with the public in a way that is understandable and even engaging. I think just basically it's not very complicated. It's just a way you can communicate to your grandma back home, to kids, in a way that they can actually understand, without actually using, the complicated terms. So why do we do science communication? So the goal of science communication is to bridge the gap between scientists and the general public, making science more accessible, relatable, and even, relevant to people's lives. So I think we are all very learned here, and we've come across in one way or another. I know we have scientists here, and we also have journalists here. So even if you're a scientist, you still need to be here, because I think in the long run or in the long term, you will not need the journalists to actually communicate your research and your studies. You may need to actually learn these skills to be able to communicate, effectively with your audience. So here are some forms of communication, science communication you can actually employ to be able to effectively communicate to the general public. So you can actually use essays, you can use art, you can use folk songs, you can use drama, you can use spoken word. I think spoken word nowadays is actually quite popular among the youth. You can also use written articles for journalists. I know you are more inclined towards written articles, blogs, poems. You can also communicate through videos. You can do a podcast. You can do lectures. You can do interactive exhibits and even social media content. So I think social media content may be actually underrated, but it's a very simplified way of actually communicating to a very large audience at the same time. So science communication plays a very crucial role in fostering scientific literacy. And I think it encourages critical thinking and even promoting better understanding of science and how it can impact the society. So when we were beginning, I talked about wetlands and wetlands. I don't know if you guys have heard of wetlands, but it's just a land that doesn't dry up most of the time. So it's just wet. Yeah, so swamps fall under wetlands. And just to discuss briefly what swamps are. So swamps are wetlands characterized by a combination of waterlogged soil and an abundance of plants. I think we've all seen swamps, if I'm not wrong. So normally they're in low-lying areas where water collects and doesn't drain very easily or doesn't drain well. And typically they're covered in shallow water with a thick layer of mud or peat at the bottom, and that's why it doesn't drain easily. So that's just basically what swamps are. I think we all know what swamps are, metaphorically speaking or directly speaking. So why did we actually select swamps for this year's competition? To support a diverse ecosystem with various types of vegetation, such as trees, shrubs, grasses, adapted to the wet condition. So swamps actually serve as an important habitat for a wide range of wildlife, including birds, reptiles, amphibians, and even insects. So they also play a role in flood control, water purification, and carbon storage. Many a times, I think we have seen cases where people are actually building on top of swamps, draining them out, or using them even, just encroaching for agriculture. But I think from here, we can actually tell that it's very important, most importantly for biodiversity to thrive. Here is a short video of a swamp. I think we've all seen something like this. They normally have plants that look like this. And some may be muddier than what you see here, but some may also be, clearer. But normally they look a bit mushy. Yeah, so if you're going to talk about the elephant in the room, I think right now everyone is talking about climate change, considering what's been going on around the world, especially with the floods, extreme droughts and all that. So everyone is wondering, what is climate change? Just the other day we had the African Climate Summit, and it was in Nairobi. And I think one thing that came out was the problem that media had, especially in Kenya. Our media could not actually relay the jargons that are in climate to actually speak to their various audiences, especially when it came to vernacular speakers, media that actually speak vernacular. They could not actually speak in a layman language, break down these jargons for the layman to actually understand. And even the speakers that were there, they did not put in the capability to actually break down this language that is actually understood by everyone. And this is why science communication actually really comes in. So when you're talking about climate change, what do we mean? We mean long-term alteration of Earth's climate patterns. Primarily, I think it's caused by human activities. It goes down to deforestation, pollution, our carbon footprint, just everything that we do that is not very environmentally friendly is what actually leads to climate change in the long run. Yeah. So, of course, there is an urgent call to action. But let me just speak about effects of climate change real quick. So just like, as I said, there's increased temperatures and you may experience some areas like this year, you may hear like some people are reaching up to 100 degrees, 80 degrees, and sometimes even -0 degrees in certain areas in the world. There has been rising sea levels. I think we've all even seen it. For example, in the Nile Basin countries, we've seen the Lake Victoria that has been rising and displacing people from their homes. And I think it's happening all over Africa and even all over the world. That is just effects of climate change. So I think we've also experienced like more extreme weather events. That would include heat waves, droughts, floods, wildfires, and they are becoming right now more frequent and even more severe. And then climate change is actually affecting human health with pollution, air pollution, heat waves. All these effects are actually causing us illness and even can be attributed to so many deaths that are happening right now. One thing we can also talk about is loss of biodiversity. So climate change is actually threatening the survival of many plant and animal species. As their habitats change, they are being forced to move or adapt, and many may not be able to do so. And that may just be a result in an unstable ecosystem. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone has a question up to there. Are we okay? Are we good? Are we good to continue? So if we
Yeah,
are
I think we
good,
can continue for sure.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so we've talked about biodiversity from the previous slide and how it is affected by climate change. And I think we can all agree right now that swamps are also part of biodiversity. So what is biodiversity? So I think we can just define it as just life on Earth. It has all the diverseness of life on Earth, and it includes all the different plants, animals, fungi, and even microorganisms like bacteria that make up our natural world. Just basically the ecosystem. That's what biodiversity is. So you may be thinking, why do we need to protect biodiversity? So it provides us with food, medicine, and other resources. It helps to regulate climate and clean our water, provides us with a place to live and play. You know, it's essential for the health of our planet. So I think without biodiversity, or if part of it is compromised, the ecosystem, of course, will just be vulnerable. And there are so many threats to biodiversity. When talking about habitat loss, this is encroachment. We're talking about pollution. There's plastic pollution everywhere. Our aquatic life is in danger. Our swamps are in danger. You know, like it's not a good thing right now. And then there is the introduction of invasive species to natural habitats, making these native species to actually, be taken out of the ecosystem. And then lastly, we have climate change. I believe we just talked about this in the previous slide. Yeah. So I think I'll reserve questions for the last slide so that we can save on time. Just briefly, these questions, just note them down. I will be able to ask you at the end. Why do we need to protect biodiversity? And what can you do as a student right now? As a student of science, as a student of journalism, who is doing communications, what can you do to protect biodiversity? So I think today we are here because of swamps. And let me just talk briefly why we actually need to protect our swamps. So one of the threats that are affecting swamps right now would be drainage for agriculture. When we're beginning, I talked about people encroaching for agriculture, you know, for building, for development. And I think those are some of the threats that our swamps are facing right now. And we've seen it, and it's causing their destruction and even loss of habitat. to species that are actually relying on swamps to thrive. So when you're talking about pollution, we're talking about industrial activities, we're talking about agricultural runoff, we're talking about, urban sources that can contaminate swamps, like plastic pollution. That is also another pollution that can actually harm the water quality, and even harm the plant and animals that actually need swamps to survive. And then another thing I think would be improperly planned activities like development projects such as dams, roads, and mines can actually have a very negative impact on wetlands if they are not properly planned and implemented. Yeah, so we've also talked about climate change. I think we talked about how climate change actually affects biodiversity, and it's also another factor that is affecting swamps. When we have altered climate and normal weather patterns because of our activities like pollution and encroachment and everything, this leads to rising temperature, altered precipitation patterns, sea level rise associated with climate change. It actually disrupts the delicate balance of swamps, and it affects water availability, it affects vegetation growth, and it affects the overall ecosystem health. And we talked about how swamps are actually important in terms of water purification, that balance, delicate balance for water purification, controlling floods, and, as a habitat for species. So that is actually a very dangerous thing. I think we can talk about invasive species, introducing plant and animals that are not actually native to swamps. And it actually helps to disrupt the natural balance and potentially lead to loss of biodiversity within the swamps. One thing I think it's also very common among swamps, they normally have reeds and sometimes, timber. And we've seen so many people harvesting plants that are growing in the swamps, harvesting animals that need it for survival, and even go ahead to extract timber, reeds, and even some particular species. And this can deplete populations and disrupt the ecological functions of the ecosystem within the swamps. So I hope we are clear up to there. And I think we can all actually tell that these are things we have all witnessed and seen happening to swamps, if you've ever been around swamps in any way. So how can we protect swamps? I think we can reduce pollution. We've talked about this. We can create awareness, and that is why we are all here. It is very necessary for us to actually advocate for the greatness of swamps so that they can actually thrive. We can do this through education, public awareness, and even political action. But it just begins with you right now at this level through science communication. And then I think we can also do with the controlling invasive species. I think once we have communicated about this, I don't think anyone would be able to actually introduce these invasive species. We also need to support sustainable development. So while we will also be communicating about swamps, I think it will be very crucial to actually support sustainable development and actually examples on how this can actually be achieved. Yes, so I think, I don't know, but you guys can tell me if right now you can actually talk about, you actually understand what climate change is, you actually right now understand what wetlands are, you can actually point out threats facing swamps, and you can also discuss how to protect swamps and why you should learn about swamps. I think we can all see there's a problem when it comes to swamps, and it's a problem that actually needs, all our action. So how are we going to do this? As communicators, whether you are a scientist or a communicator, you can actually use various communication outputs to actually communicate about the plight of swamps in Africa. So you can actually do this through essays, news feature, journalistic article. I think we talked about this previously. You can do poems, spoken word, you can do artworks, if you're a very good painter, you can actually evoke emotions through your paintwork. You can do a storyboard if you're an animator. You can do a paint, you can do short stories, drama, music, folk songs, just name it all. Podcasts and social media and even whatnot. Yeah. So now that we are done with the terms and even why we are here, I think it's just for us to talk about the communication output structure that we are going to compete on. So when you're doing a communication output, it's very necessary to introduce the topic, the background information on even swamps and wetlands, their importance, and even some of the threats they face. So you can actually rely on case studies that have been done in the past to actually find a very relevant topic in Africa to actually tackle. And this is what you will be structuring in your competition. So another output structure, another structure that you can actually be keen on is actually underlining the importance of swamps and even biodiversity. You can highlight just how a community that you are affiliated with relies on swamps, and how it and even the wildlife that is within you or around you or where you're coming from relies on swamp to actually maintain the delicate structure of ecosystems. Another thing that you should be keen on when you're doing your output is talk about swamps and biodiversity in the wake of climate change. So this you can do by just underlining how climate change has affected swamps in your community. This is pretty simple because when you do this, you'll definitely be talking about biodiversity as well. Another thing you can also be keen on is threats that swamps are facing from your story and even from your case study, and what you can actually, highlight from what you've seen as a threat to swamps and biodiversity in your community. And you can also share how you can address these threats for effective, conservation. Yeah, so we talked about case studies. You can also include success stories. It doesn't have to be stories of doom. You can talk about, in your case studies, you can talk about your success story, like what did your community do to actually save the swamps that are in your community? What did they do to actually, protect the habitat of wildlife that depend on it, plants that are there, Yeah, so you can always do your success story. Another thing is always you can conclude. And by conclusion, I mean talking about conservation efforts that have been done or can be done, how you can actually raise awareness and how you can actually, contribute to the betterment of swamps. Yeah, so you can always include more factors that you can actually do to actually protect swamps. Yeah, so perhaps you're wondering who is eligible. While I was admitting people to the WhatsApp group, we have like teams. So many people will be working in teams. I saw groups from Nigeria, the Gambia, and even Uganda that admitted themselves as a group. So if you are in a group of 2 to 3, you are very eligible. If you are 2, you are also very eligible. If you are also doing the competition as a single competitor, that is also very acceptable. So you will be able to team up to produce a communication output of your choice according to the guidelines that were given previously. And then you will be able to choose a scientific research article about swamps in your particular country and use it as a case study. So in your teams or individually or plural teams, you will come up with a case study or a research article that has been done on swamps, and you will be able to use it as a case study to actually produce your communication output. But then you may be wondering, what's at stake? What's at stake? Yeah, someone is asking if the meeting is being recorded. It is being recorded and we'll be able to share with those who are not able to join us. Yeah. So number one, whether you are in a group of 3 or 2 or 1 person and your communication output wins, you'll be awarded $125 US. And you will also be able to actually get like some couple of branded items from Infonile. That will include a thermal flask, t-shirt, or even a notebook, either of the above. Yeah. And then if you work really hard, but then you are number 2, you will be given $100 US plus the same branded items. If you are number 3, we are also giving you $85 US, and then with a couple of branded items. If you have really put in a lot of effort and you become number 4 or 5, you'll be given a couple of branded items just to appreciate your effort and encourage you to keep, the good work that you have actually done. So I would also just like to point out that you do not really need to be like very saddened if you have not won the competition or if you not become top 5. But this is also an opportunity to learn and to gain knowledge and to gain networks so that you can actually, when after your graduation, you can actually be able to do all this science communication, for the betterment of your community. And that is all we want. That is why we are here. An opportunity to actually learn and, increase our network. Let me just go straight into judges rubric so that we leave enough time for questions. So here is the process. Once you have submitted your communication output, we shall be giving them to judges. Normally, there are 3 judges that go through your output, each output. They give you scores according to this rubric. Each judge will be giving you a score, and then we will average their scores, and then we will be able to determine our top scorers from there. So how will the judges actually evaluate your work once you have actually delivered it? In terms of content and accuracy, you'll be able to get 30%. We want to see, did you understand the topic? Did you understand the importance of swamps, biodiversity? Did you actually include impacts of climate change on this ecosystem, the swamps? Yeah, so we would like to actually know that. And that will actually give you 30% score. Another thing that, Another thing is content and clarity. We would like to know, I don't know why it keeps drawing like this. I think there's a problem. Let me just a minute. Are you guys seeing all those drawings that are in red and blue and black? Or is this just me?
Yes.
You're able to see them?
Yeah, we see them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I think there's something I'm touching that is drawing them there. Yeah, so in terms of clarity and organization, the judges would really like to know if your presentation is the way you're presenting information, is it clear? Is it concise? And is it even engaging? So the way you are presenting your information in a clear and organized manner will actually give you 20%. Sorry about this at the bottom, they are not very much aligned. And then in terms of creativity and innovation, like for example, in your video, how have you edited your video? How have you presented your hypothesis? If it's a poem, How creative are you with the poem? If it's spoken word, how good are you with the way you are structuring your information? Are you creative enough? Are you innovative enough? Are you demonstrating originality, or did you just copy something that someone did before and presenting it to the judges? So when you're creative and you're innovative, you'll be able to earn yourself 15% of the total score. Yeah. So another thing that you can also consider would be how effective your communication will be. And this will be able to earn you like 15% score. We want to see like an engaging story. Sometimes you write something or you do a video and someone sleeps along the way, or it looks disjointed and it's a bit boring. It's not a very effective way of communication. So if you do not, tailor your communication in this, in a manner that is very understandable, you may lose the 15 points out of your final score. Another thing you may consider is how impactful and engaging your output will be. This is, I think, on creative approach. You need to evaluate the use of creative writing skills, writing techniques, engaging storytelling, compelling arguments to capture the reader's attention. For example, if you're doing like, a news feature, you can include, very nice photos to actually support your story. It's very engaging if someone can actually see what you're talking about, your case study, but then it is also supported with some photos. Hello? Is someone speaking or it's erroneous? I think it was.
Rosa we Rosa mumwakiriki kona none ngiye kareka kuvuga eza hagati muri gukora kati agowe Rosa muri abasirikari na Rosa bapiki. Umva mutubwire ntituvugane bamuri mu manama ndebera nk'ubu ndimo kuvuga ahubwo uretse gabanya gatanu.
Purity, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys. I think I was on mute accidentally. Yeah, so I was just speaking about social media, and we will be able to help you with this. But all you need now is to campaign on social media on your own, how you will be able to present it and actually do the necessary taggings, how you will present your output, how you'll be able to engage the public to actually, vote for your output, how they will be sharing, commenting, and liking will be very important for your final score, which will take 10%. I will be able to guide you throughout this stage so that it's done well and you are able to get the maximum engagement and reaction that you'll be able to need. Yeah. I think this marks the end of my presentation. And as I said, these are the organizations that are supporting this initiative. And this is an ILWEL initiative. This competition is an ILWEL initiative. And I talked about the organizations that are actually supporting in the previous slide. So what are the timelines to actually present your outputs? Induction meeting, we just did it right now. We'll be able to share the video, and then I think I'll be able to share the presentation with you guys. For those who are not able to make it, they'll be able to actually access it, and everyone else that is here. So we will expect you to work on your communication outputs, and the deadline will be between 6th to 9th October this year. We'll be able to remind you, we'll be able to support you during the process of producing your output. Infonail team is also in the group, so I'll be able to share some of their contacts. And then if you have a question, you can always, contact each and every member of us. And then after you have done your output and it's out there and everything is finalized, we'll be able to give the judges, so that they can actually analyze the scores and give us, the average scores, which we will, tally with the social media and everything. And after that, we will do an award ceremony. So the ceremony will be communicated. It's not yet decided right now, but we'll be able to communicate as time goes by. What we really need to underline is deadline to submit our communication outputs, and that is between 6th and 9th October. So we still have a good amount of time to actually, get busy with the communication outputs. Yeah, so I've shared a couple of links with you, and you guys can actually go through them later when you find time. I've shared like some works that have been done with the media on swamps, several study cases, and I've also included our SciComm 2022 winners. You can see what they shared, and then you can actually understand what the communication is all about. Yeah. So that basically marks the end of my presentation. In case anyone has a question, please feel free to to turn on your speaker and share your question. In case there's any member of Infonail that would like to actually add into what I have just spoken about or left something out, I think I leave the podium to questions and, additional remarks and points that we can actually include in the competition. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so anyone that has a question or Infonail team that has any recommendations or any remarks that they can add, feel free to open your mic and actually share. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, madam. My concern is about we submit those outputs as a group of teams, like the way we are filling the forms. They would ask you how many team members do you have. So I would submit according to the teams as a group. Oh.
Yes, you'll be able to submit as a group. So towards the deadline, we will share with you a form, and in this form, you'll be able to share your photos, each group member. You'll share a link to your communication output, your various names in a respective order, and then we will be able to actually access your group work or even your individual work through this link that you'll be able to share. Is that okay?
Yes, madam, it's fine.
Yes. So when you're working as a group, you just submit one work that you would have produced as a team. Thank you for the question. Anyone else with a question, remarks?
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, this is
Hi.
Ambrose.
Yes.
From South Africa.
Yes.
I have a number of questions and clarifications.
Yes.
Number one, maybe the submissions, the way you explain the submissions, they can be in different forms. It could be a poem, it could be an article, it could be in form of videos or something. I don't know if there are specific guidelines for each of those formats, because the way you're going to write a poem is definitely different from the way you're going to write a scientific article. You have to make references. You have to use some, make it academic. So because I'm asking this so that we can make an informed choice. There are some of us who can use any of those platforms, but one will be interested in the one that will be easier to accomplish. So for example, if I want to do a poem, what is going to be the expectation? It's not going to be the same because a poem, a poetry has its own structure that is different from a scientific article that involves, reading books and all. I don't know if you want to be taking it one after the other.
Yeah, let me just answer that. So thank you so much, Ambrose. Yeah. So as we talked about the judges, rubric and even the communication output and what the judges will actually be analyzing when they'll be looking through your poem, your video, or be it an article or your painting. They'll be looking at this specific, the rubric that we shared. So if you're doing a poem, of course, you may have a case study, like for example, a particular area in South Africa that has they are facing detrimental effects on swamps. So your poem is actually going to talk about this swamp in your community. In case you're having a case study does not necessarily mean that your poem is going to have these technical terms. So you are going to communicate this case study in collusion with your community, with your community story, and you're going to communicate them in a manner that your community can actually understand. When you're saying the swamps can actually affect their lives and even their health, no one will actually believe you unless you have actually a case study that has been done and you're trying to prove that is actually true. Because with that, you have a verifiable, information. So whether you're saying it through a poem or through a video, at least you have a case study. And the judges' rubric will be the same, whether you are in Uganda or South Africa or Nigeria or Mozambique, it's still the same. You'll be having a research that you'll be using as a case study. The way you'll be communicating it. Is it creative? Is it engaging? Does it touch on the various aspects of swamps? Like what we talked about in the rubric. So you have to touch on these, these guidelines that we're trying to give you to actually communicate effectively. It doesn't matter the form that the communication will actually take. I don't know if that answers you.
Oh, yeah.
Well.
Okay, the only part is, okay, so you're going to have an audience in mind, and that is the particular community you're using.
Yeah.
I mean, in designing your work, your focus would be on the community that you're making as a case, using as a case study, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now my second question. The gifts for the winners. I mean, what about those participants who do not emerge as first, second, third, or maybe fourth? Is there an incentive for them after making this?
Yes, we will give each and everyone that does submits an output a certificate of participation. Okay. And I think that's a very good recognition. That is something they can use in, when you're looking for other works that is relatable to, conservation and biodiversity and stuff like that. Especially if you are set to graduate and you're looking for, you can always, share these certificates and show that you actually participated in a competition that was of that nature. So we'll be able to give everyone that submits an output a certificate of participation.
Okay.
Yes.
Lastly, I think this should be the last one so that I can give room for others. For example, if you're writing an article, how are you expected to present? Because I'm looking at it from an academic perspective because I'm a student. If I'm writing an article as a student, I'll be expected to reference scientifically and choose a particular reference types, maybe APA or Chicago style or whatever. So I want to know that if these, maybe when we get the examples of those who have participated, maybe it will make it clearer, so that are we just going to write like creative writing, or you're going to be referencing other resources or books or articles in connection with your case study?
Yeah, so the writing can take various forms. You can do a photo story, you can do a news feature, you can do like a creative writing, like you said, you can do like an essay, like you said, and of course you'll be referencing to a case study. I just wanted to show you guys, like, like for example, an instance of a case study. You can always go to ResearchGate. Normally has like various, research articles. And I think, yeah, I was just searching for swamps in Africa. And you can see there are several research articles, like strategies and approaches to mangrove swamp price varietal improvement in West Africa. So you can always just choose this. There are several here, by the way. You can choose. There's so many. Like here, I can see the Sud swamps in the Nile Basin in contrast to the drainage of the Everglades of the United States. So there are so many comparisons. There's so many case studies out there. Yeah. So for example, this one, you can just see what is it about and what are they talking about. So if they're talking about mangrove and how it can be improved, mangrove swamp rice and how it can be improved in West Africa. So you'll be seeing what the introduction is, what the issue is, and how this issue can be improved. So if you take this case study, of course now you'll be talking about the mangrove swamp rice. We'll be talking about its, you'll do an introduction, we'll be talking about what's affecting the mangrove swamp rice, in terms of biodiversity. How is it contributing to, the betterment of biodiversity? Do some species feed on it when it's growing? Does it help in any way? Does it support the community in any way? And how is it affected by climate change? Something like that. And then you can give, like, for example, now in your community or the community that you'll pick regarding this mangrove swamp rice, you'll be able to share, is it a success story? Or is it like something they're struggling with, the community that you choose? Is it something they're struggling with? And if they're struggling with it, what are some of the approaches that they can take to actually, beat this issue that you're talking about? So this is like an example of a case study that you can use to actually support your story, your video, whatever. If you're going to shoot it, then at least you are going to reference it in your video while you are talking about it. Yeah. So I don't know if this is clear on how we can actually use the articles. Sorry?
No, this is clear. This is very clear. Maybe we'll send some relevant materials that will assist, or samples of past works that will assist us as a guide.
Yes, I will be able to share these.
Thank you.
I also can suggest, in case you're doing like articles, you can actually publish them on Notion. These are not payable, so that you don't have to pay for it. You can publish on Notion, Blogspot. You can publish on Wix, WordPress. These are free avenues. You can also use YouTube. There's Spotify. There's also what else? Yeah, so you can use various forms to actually, and if you do like, for example, a painting, of course you'll have to take like a picture of it, do like some captions, just the basic essence. If you're doing like a poem, you will publish it on one of those websites I've just mentioned, and then you can share. You can always incorporate videos in your story, the photos. It doesn't have to be like one medium that you're using. So in case you're using a poem, it doesn't stop you from, supporting it with photos and videos. In case you're doing like a news feature, it doesn't stop you from using, a podcast. You can usually, incorporate a podcast or a video, photos, or any other forms of communication inside your hypothesis. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Yes. So you don't have to confine yourself to just one thing. while you're doing your communication output. I hope that's okay.
Very perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambrose, for your questions. I think it also helps to solve other questions that we were not able to tackle. Yeah, so Philip is talking about photo story. Can you elaborate more on a photo story? Yes, I can elaborate. Let me just show you one story and at Infonile that is a photo story. So a photo story is not really that complicated. It's just doing your story, but you are communicating through photos. So someone can actually see your photo and actually know what you're saying without actually even reading the story. They don't have to read the story to actually know what you're talking about. They can just see the photos, and from the photos, they can actually learn so much more about your what you're talking about. Let me just reshare a particular screen here. So this is a story I myself did. It's a photo story. It's about a river in my community. It's called River Kisian. And I was talking about its degradation and how even the community can work on its restoration. So without even reading it, you can just see from the photos, like, what am I trying to talk about? So first I'll talk about the beauty that is in how the community relies on the river. You can actually see kills. That means that they're using the river to do that. You can see a couple of agriculture that is happening because of the river. And then we normally add data. This one we'll have to teach you later once you have graduated from this competition. But if you know how to incorporate data, feel free. And also if you want to know more about it, you can also talk to us. So without even talking, you can actually see what is happening to this river. This is someone who is speaking about the river. Then you can see the state of the river right now. What the sand harvesting, you can see it from there. You can see the quality of water from the photos. You can see the state of the bridge from just how flooding happens and the bridge is falling and everything. And you can see it affects students. As you can see, that bridge is not even that great. This is sand harvesting still happening. And then I offer solutions like what another community has done to actually bridge this issue. You can see that this is a very effective way of managing this issue of erosion and even sand harvesting. There's someone also talking about it. You can see that now I'm coming to a conclusion about the story. So a photo story will actually talk about the story without you doing so much as, wording and everything. It will just do the work for you without saying much. I hope that is very clear in case anyone was interested in a photo story. So there's a mistake some of us did last year, and I think they just took photos and just left it there. They just put it there. So at least you need to support it with some information so that the judgment can be much clearer. So someone is talking about short video as a communication style. What should be its maximum limit in terms of minutes? Very good. This is a very good question. So normally we encourage 3 to 5 minutes. It's very good. It enables you to capture everything that you had in mind. But if you can go up to 10 minutes and you keep it even interesting and engaging, then it's very okay. But you encourage 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. Yankuba, I hope that is okay. I hope the question about photo story is also very clear.
Yes, my question has been answered. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone has a question, or also feel free to share your questions on WhatsApp. I think I'll be able to share some of the numbers that you can reach out to be able to share your questions. I know students are very impatient people, and I can see some of us have left, but I just want to keep it short and actually, come to a conclusion if there is no question. Anyone from Infonile team that has any point to add in? You can leave this podium to you. Let me see, there's another question there. What should be the word limit for descriptive story? Word limit. I don't know if there's any word limit, but I think a 1 to 2 page script is okay. What limit for descriptive story? Yeah, I don't know if you're talking about a news feature or an article, but I think 1 to 2 pages is very okay. Yes, so you can incorporate any forms of media that you would like into the story. Yeah. Anika Magini is saying everything is okay. I don't know if anyone has a comment. In case anyone doesn't have a comment, I think maybe I would like to also emphasize on the language of communication. We would be going with English. Yes, so in case you do in case you're not very good in another language, you can always use Google to translate the work that you've done. In case you are not very good with English, but we will be accepting only English language as a communication output. Okay, so are we okay? Are we on the same page to actually end the meeting? I'll be able to communicate to you all these resources via mail so that they can actually guide you for the competition. I would really like to thank you for those who have been very patient from beginning to end. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you for being here. So I look forward to your output. In case there is no comment, I think all of us can just open their cameras. Like I see Evans. Hi, Evans. Yeah, everyone can just open their cameras and then we can just say bye-bye. And then I think we can just end it here. So I am seeing Ambrose. Hi, Ambrose.
Hi,
I'm
thank
seeing
you.
Ahmad, Nyagongo. I can see Melese. Hi, Melese. Yes, so thank you guys for joining us today. And I think I'll just come to a conclusion and close this meeting. In case there's any question, you can always reach me on email and even on WhatsApp. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening and a nice weekend. Bye-bye.